just want to look at the piece written by Oliver Brown in the inside of the back of the Daily Telegraph as well. And I'm telling you, he is not holding back in this piece, gents. And in fact, the headline as well, Rwanda gaffe nails Infantino as the game's most toxic narcissist. Of course, he's now UEFA president for the next term, isn't he? Having stood unopposed, so maybe he's feeling a bit more re-elected today. Jonathan, let me come to you on this. I mean, you know, what did you make of this, and what did you make of the story and Gianni Infantino, what he said as a whole?
Well, I mean, what is there left to be said about Infantino? I mean, the scenes from Kigali were kind of, you know, they were reminiscent of something out of, you know, North Korea or some totalitarian state where, you know, there's a single candidate in an election and they're kind of they are re-elected to what may well be a 15-year term by acclamation. Nobody in FIFA dares to speak out against Infantino. Really, nobody dares to certainly stand against him, because the consequences of doing that are simply just not worth it for your own national FA and its reliance on, you know, the individual federations are basically reliant on FIFA handouts, and it's created this culture, very, you know, ruthless culture, you might call it, of essentially this cult around a single guy who can say whatever he wants. And I think he compared, you know, he called his own journey, you know, he compared it to Rwanda's healing process after the 1990s genocide, which is quite inappropriate, really. But then, you know, you kind of expect nothing less from this guy now.
Amongst the other topics for discussion towards the end of his remarks, Miguel, the topic of equal pay. And he sort of said how the women's game between two different World Cups had added £100 million in terms of, you know, what it's worth and what you know, how much is going to be paid out, and hoping that the Women's World Cup in 2027 will be equal pay to the Men's World Cup in 2026. What's your thoughts on this current situation?
But one of the more welcome developments, as Jonathan references it there, I mean, there's so much, I suppose, to criticise FIFA for, and rightfully so. But this is one of the better developments. I mean, it should be quicker, and they do have the finances to address it much sooner. But it was interesting as well, of course, that story came alongside this other farce where they finally dropped Visit Saudi as a sponsor for the next World Cup. So, I mean, and this feels like the modern FIFA in that sense, and every partly positive step can't but be offset by another kind of bizarre story, especially under Infantino.
Jonathan, I see you sort of just taking in what Miguel is saying there. I mean, Infantino's point was, well, you know, he was surprised and a bit upset that sponsors and broadcasters weren't offering more for the Women's World Cup, and he didn't seem to see any issue with there being a Saudi sponsor or a Qatari sponsor. I mean, you know, but how would you respond to what he was saying there?
I mean, he does genuinely believe this stuff. I mean, he genuinely sees himself as a kind of a savior, a modernizer, some kind of, you know, white knight almost. And I guess what he would argue is that, you know, you need to do business with everyone in order to kind of provide the maximum revenue for the entire game. And obviously that leads you, you know, into doing deals with some extremely disreputable regimes. The wider pattern of behaviour here, and you see it with China, you see it with Saudi Arabia, you see it with Qatar, where he literally moved house. You know, he literally moved to Doha. Is this kind of, he almost seems kind of beguiled by power. You know, sort of Putin as well, and Trump. He has this incredible affinity with powerful regimes and powerful men, and I don't know. It's certainly a good way of swelling the coffers of your organisation, but whether it makes you, you know, suitable as a kind of a moral figurehead for a global game, that's another question, I guess.
I do think that's one of the problems with that sort of role, because if you look at what kind of the head of FIFA or even the head of UEFA is, it basically you have the ability to bestow a tournament on a country, which is a hugely powerful thing, as well as Jonathan mentioned, all the potential resources, without any sort of kind of real political system. So it's the power of a high-profile politician with none of the responsibility, even right down to the fact you barely have to contest an election. It's not like you're in a two-party system or anything like that. And as well as that, then, what's also seems clear, as Jonathan's referenced there, you rub up against some of the most powerful people in the world. And that, from if you talk to people who have kind of worked with football figureheads in the past and current ones, they do say that has an effect on people, and they can start to kind of lose touch a bit. And then it can lead into preposterous statements like that we heard today, which is pretty much kind of a very unwelcome sequel to his opening address at the World Cup.
Yeah, well, we have him for a few more years yet.